Well, we've become terrific fans of British police shows. And, shows like Prime Suspect, Vera, Shetland, Line of Duty, Criminal UK. And I thought it might be useful to clarify what British police ranks look like. And I'm only going to touch on the ones we see most frequently, because the different police departments in UK vary when you get above these ranks. The ranks were established actually in 1829 by Sir Robert Peel. Now, the thing to know about it is that you have a separate uniformed side of the police department and a detective side, normally called a criminal investigation division or a special division. But the same ranks apply. You know you're dealing with a detective because they'll say detective this, detective that, or use the abbreviation D. So let's tackle the first rank that you come across, and that is the rank of constable. Now, he's essentially, on the uniform side, he's essentially a patrolman. In these shows, he's normally the first person to show up on the crime scene. He'll interview bystanders, he'll handle crowd control and things like that. And of course, he's required to file a lot of reports that get fed into the hopper when they're investigating a crime. Now, his counterpart on the detective side is detective constable. And detective constable is really normally just a trainee. The only show I can think of that has any detective constables in it is Criminal UK, and they got two characters, Warren and Pettit. The next rank is sergeant. That's the first supervisory rank that there is in these police forces. And there are sergeants on the uniform side, typically wearing 3 chevrons, and there are sergeants on the detective side, called detective sergeants. And they seem to be the kind of worker bees in these crime shows. You know, they're directed by somebody above them to go and interview this or do that or whatnot. But they're the basic working detectives, the foot guys. The next rank up is inspector. And that's the one that caused me confusion because I somehow or other conflated the idea of detective with inspector. But actually what it is it's the second supervisory rank. He's in charge of sergeants. And typically what an inspector in the uniform side is in charge of all the cops who are on duty during a particular shift, say the 12 to 8. Now, inspector on the detective side is called the detective inspector, DI, and these guys seem to take charge of investigations, and there are a lot of them. For example, you've got DI Jimmy Perez in Shetland. You've got Morse, Detective Inspector Morse, and George Gently. All of those are inspectors. The next rank up is a chief inspector. And for uniformed cops, he's in command of a district, whatever that might be, depending on the location in UK. For detectives, a detective chief inspector is a fairly senior detective, and he's usually in charge of a whole group of detective sergeants and detective constables, detective inspectors, and we see them quite frequently on these police shows. For example, Detective Chief Inspector Lestrade on Sherlock, Detective Chief Inspector DCI Stanhope on Vera. Very frequent character. The next rank up is a superintendent, and as you can imagine, on the uniform side, they're in command of a bunch of chief inspectors, inspectors, sergeants, and cops. For detectives, it's at the superintendent level that we seem to get complications introduced into the plots on these UK crime shows. Now, those are the only ranks I want to talk about. You have other ranks that go above them, and they vary from place to place in UK, depending on the police force. But I certainly recommend that you try these British police shows. They're very well written, very well plotted, very well acted. They're terrific. We're quite hooked on them. I hope this clarifies the hierarchy in these police departments so that you can understand what's going on with constables, sergeants, inspectors, and so on. All right, that's enough for this special report.